Welcome to another episode of the podcast. I'm Chris, and Larry's not here right now. We are, as you're watching this, in Jeffersonville, Ohio, at the latest edition of the Reset Your Mindset live event tour. We've got about 25 people up there spending a 2-day on a 2-day journey of learning about everything that we teach here on the podcast in depth. So we're going to play for you an episode that we recorded with Rick Burnett, the CEO of LaneAxis. LaneAxis is a new technology. It's a new transportation management system of sorts that uses blockchain technology to connect carriers and shippers directly without a broker. It's basically a brokerless model. I really highly encourage you to look into blockchain and begin to understand how it works and what it can do. I believe the trucking industry is going to be the proving grounds for blockchain technology, and it's going to transform the world economy. And we are right here with front row tickets to see how it's going to work. So without further ado, here's our conversation with Rick Burnett, CEO of LaneAxis. Okay, Rick Burnett, welcome to the Blue Ribbon Podcast. Good to have you here. We wanted to talk to you about LaneAxis and the direction that things are headed. So if you could give us a little background on what LaneAxis is and how it came to be and what kind of what you expect it to do in the short term.
Yeah, so thanks for having me on. Appreciate the opportunity to speak with you guys. I love what you guys are doing. Love what you guys represent. It's actually what we represent as well. Our core mission is to provide, improvement to drivers' lives, driver experiences, get them home to their families when because obviously the network and the transportation market's changing, help them make more money. And that's always been, what, where LaneAxis is really about. So we're the industry first brokerless direct freight network. And very simply what that means is they're hauling the freight today. They're just not getting it direct. Right. And we built a platform that allows that direct connectivity between a shipper, manufacturer, anybody moving product to deal directly with that trucking company. In a lot of cases, 930 plus thousand cases in the U.S., they're owner operators, right? And so we want to build that gateway to where we see the market being 5, 7, 10 years. LaneAxis is successful. There's 3.5, 4 million owner operator network that actually moves the freight today because they're doing the work. And we build a platform that allows them to have freight available directly wherever they're going, because now everything's regulated through ELDs and logging devices. And so by providing network visibility and immediate connectivity, when they come off a reset, they have options wherever they're at, maybe to make a last mile movement or an LTL traditionally that they wouldn't have, availability or even, exposure to, that now they can. And so they're making money wherever they're at on wherever their hours are reset on, and then wherever they want to go. So that's the basic, I would say fundamental part of what LaneAxis is doing is we're really targeting, let's just call it, there's 850 to 900,000 loads a day on an example on DAT. And what is that? Those loads posted by brokers or shippers trying to find capacity. So there's capacity out there. So product needs to be moved. There's a truck in that area. And if you provide network visibility and immediate connectivity, then what happens is you can bring them two together. And so that's the basic premise behind what LaneAxis is actually doing, is providing efficiency, reducing the million trucks moving empty every day, and providing, a network visibility that levels the traditional truckload, less than truckload or last mile movements, and providing just transportation network visibility. And from A to Z, from contractual to insurance requirements to load level management to real-time tracking visibility, electronic documentation, quantifying those data points into a network that gives various different real data valuable data sets in the network, and then direct payment. So it's a complete A to Z transportation, let's call it aviation system, comparable network.
We work in a closed system with Landstar, so we're running under Landstar's DOT number, using their authority, their purchasing power, which benefits us as owner operators. We get cheaper tires, cheaper fuel. We have our network of agents that go out and try to sell freight, but we also have agents that can reach out to DAT or truck stop and get us loads to fill our capacity. So I think in the short term, there's not much for the leased operator that, like us, that this LaneAxis can do. But I'm really fired up for what I see as a future of a brokerless model, because I kind of look at the historical context of, go back to the 70s before deregulation. You had people that owned routes. You had companies that manufactured products and owned their own trucks, and then had to come, and had to buy calls. So the broker was necessary. The third party person with their own contacts and communication, they were a necessary part. Well, it seems like over the last 25 years, we're just polishing a turd. We're trying to make this turd not stink.
Right.
But I think we can see a model where carriers don't own trailers anymore, where deadhead is a thing of the past, where payment issues are taken care of with smart contracts, maybe run on Ethereum. Because right now, one of the things that we teach people, because, we run into why would you give all your money to that carrier? Why does Landstar take all of your money?
Mm-hmm.
Well, I'm transferring a lot of risk to Landstar, billing and compliance and all the stuff that as an individual truck owner, I would have to take care of myself. I can pass that off to Landstar for a piece of the action. Well, if I can get to a place where I can mitigate some of that risk and have some of that purchasing power and communication volume that a lot of these big carriers do, and I can do that as an independent, it really starts to make sense to have a direct customer model, because as a driver, the closer you get me to the customer, the better off they are, the better off I am. They're going to get better service. I'm going to make more money. Absolutely.
And I think in what you just described there, going back to deregulation up until the current, there's a massive piece of fruit in what you described, right? Now, in that massive piece of fruit and in that field of fruit, there's a bunch of different weeds that have grown up, and it's strangling the growth, and it's really not producing a good enough fruit that it actually could if you got rid of all the weeds and watered it properly and it had an ability to naturally grow, right? And so what's happened? Well, in that analogy that you gave in deregulation, where there was a place in time, well, the place in time, had multiple factors. Number one, a lot of manufacturers got rid of legacy cost 15, 20 years ago because they didn't want to pay a guy 30 years from retirement. So they've outsourced transportation. They've outsourced it by not paying legacy costs, and they replaced it with 3PLs and brokers and purchase transportation, so that they lowered their overall cost. But now what's happened is that stranglehold of that relationship now is controlled. And they've used the internet and technology to broadcast, to really find out where all these various different owner operators, small independent guys are moving. And through technology, they use that as a tool to then take advantage, right? Because they know that you're going to get back, and they know that you don't have an ability. And quite frankly, if there's anything that goes wrong, well, they have a network of 50, 60, 100,000 plus, and always have an opportunity of different people that, quite frankly, as a one-off owner operator, if you piss the guy off, you might not get freight anymore. So you can't run that risk. So if he hits you with a $125 late payment, and you can't quantify the data to prove that you were there when you actually were, you get assessed a charge, and you have a choice. You can say, go pound sand, I'm never hauling freight for you again, and go try to find somebody else to replace that freight, or you take it. That's what you're stuck with. That's real life situations. And so what LaneAxis is doing is, and you're right. This is cancer. And this cancer is all over the transportation industry body. And there's so many layers of complexity of this cancer that it's not going to be solved overnight. I mean, LaneAxis is a process of movement, of direct connectivity that, quite frankly, if the smaller independent guys don't get behind this and support it, it won't happen. You will not control your own destiny that you really want to be. And that's ultimately why you're an owner operator, right? I mean, I talked to hundreds of these guys over the years, and I didn't just start this. This has been over a decade of my life getting to this point. And while we fundamentally are in great shape, we're nowhere near, where we need to be in the form of the mass exposure that we need to let people know, look, you're doing the work today. You're just not getting paid directly what you actually could actually get paid. And the byproduct of doing that, what's going to happen is it's going to evolve and grow. And the more that happens, the more that people get behind. And then there will be a natural organic transformation, with what technology does, because when you peel the onion down to the core and say, what is LaneAxis? Well, LaneAxis is the purest form of a direct connection. That's it. It's direct contract. And then we can talk about the blockchain later. And there's components of the blockchain that are valuable because it makes it a trustless network.
Right.
What's trustless mean? It means that it is what it is in the contractual relationship, and there's no manipulation of that data, period. And so when you do understand what we actually represent, we are the purest form, and you look at the cost and all the other elements, and then you layer on additional value that the owner operator and smaller independent guys can get from the benefit of the data that they're actually part of and growing, which doesn't exist today, right? I mean, EDI, some guy in Chicago entering that the guy got there at 10 a.m. Well, did he or didn't he?
Right.
And some guy calling at UPS and say, look, I'm on LMA number 97472, and this is my trailer number. Well, how many times do you think that gets messed up in a day's time?
Every day.
Every day, hundreds of times. And that's one example. And so in this complex thing, well, why is it complex? Right? I mean, you just have to ask yourself, why is transportation what is transportation? Transportation is product being moved from point A to point B. Simply put, that's it. Right?
Right.
There's a shipper that's got product needs moving. There's a guy that's going to go haul it. That's transportation. Now, what's happened is that the last person that wants to see efficiency to the core of what LaneAxis is doing is a broker, 3PL, or a large trucking company.
Yes.
Why? Because the more complex that it is and the more messed up it is, the more they're needed.
Right.
Have them because they control the information source. And so when you remove, and we did a 4 or 5 years ago, we did a purchase transportation press release because we actually had a guy to go in and do the research and look at the publicly traded reports. And purchase transportation is a brokered load. They buy the capacity and subcontract it out.
Right.
They book it as purchase transportation, but it's a brokered load. So in the numbers, nobody really knows how much is transportation number of third-party brokered loads, freight broker, and then it's massive. It is billions and billions of dollars. And why? Because the massive part of the movements, it's like when the pandemic happened last year. Perfect example. Well, the shelves dried up. Well, why did the shelves dry up? There was carriers around there that could have moved product to there to keep the shelf stock. There was no network visibility. Nobody knows where each other is.
100%.
So why is the guy moving empty? In a normal, I don't care if he's going for a maintenance repair that's 50 miles. He could pick up something on the back of that truck and pay for his driver and his fuel. No network visibility. So when you think about that, and so that's why I tell people, look, and I make an analogy of sports a lot, but it's so much true in our life, just life examples. We've all seen technology move into a direct network in all of our lives. Buying stock, from E-Trade to Netflix removing Blockbuster to, blah, blah, blah. And so the model itself of what we're talking about is not new. We're a salmon streaming uphill into the water that's everything's coming at us, and we have nobody behind us because we have no friends in this game.
How important do you think education is in this? Because I stumbled across crypto and blockchain probably 8 or 9 years ago. So I've gotten it in nibbles,
Right.
and a year and I understand a little bit more, and a year and I understand a little bit. And now I have it's not scary to me. It's not, how bad is it going to be? It's no, how great is it going to be? So
think about this. Right. Okay. So LaneAxis is at its core of what it's doing has got nothing to do with crypto. Okay. What's its core? Building direct relationships between the shipper and the carrier, and then track it in real time on our mobile app called Freight Vision, and direct payment with Stripe and or Circle, whichever component you want to use, that pays it. And then after 24 hours, when both sides have a dispute period of holding, the network automatically releases payment. So in the core, it in the blockchain is validating the self-executed contract and validating insurance requirements. So the relationship is done, blockchain, and all is stored on historical icon. That's the foundational part of LaneAxis. And there's a price for 1% charge to the shipper. In addition, if it's $1,000 load, there's $10 to the shipper's charged from the network to provide that direct connectivity. He can connect with hundreds of thousands of direct carriers, no cost. He can negotiate no cost. It's just when a load actually moves and there's value brought to him, he's charged 1% and a $5 load tracking fee that gives him real-time information, data communication, and right to the driver and electronic documentation. And then the carrier's deducted $10 from his direct payment of his $1,000. That's the network charge. That's the revenue model of the network. You won't beat it anywhere because the pricing models of a brokered load. It's 15, 20, 30% as much as they can make. So there's no comparison into the network revenue that it does itself. The digital asset that comes behind that is all the 45 different transactional data points that are going to be quantified as the network of transportation grows. Okay. And of that, they all have value. That's the digital asset that the LaneAxis network is building. It's got nothing to do with crypto. It's got nothing to do with other than blockchain is a trustless network, and access token is the data that is being produced to transportation that has quantifiable data that affects the bottom line of shippers and carriers and or insurance companies that want data or government that wants traffic flow information, that all come behind building the actual network that doesn't exist. There's no network data because there's no network. That's why they don't go direct. I mean, a person saying, "Oh, it's a shipper carrier direct," is not the network. That there's, and we get compared with Uber Freight or Convoy or all these other guys are doing this, that, and the other. They can do tremendous value. I'm not knocking any company that provides tremendous value to their customer base. We are focused on the network itself. We're agnostic to the freight type. We're agnostic to the movement amounts. We're building. When the towers got hit in 2000 in 9/11, right? They grounded them planes in 2 hours. How did they do that? They did that because they had network visibility of all the planes, right? American, Delta, and everything. There's a single network. If we had a single network last year in transportation, we could have dispatched and moved them trucks and had the products on them shelves and would have never been empty.
Okay, so I have a question on that, because one of the cores that I see as a benefit of blockchain and crypto, and the reason I say crypto when I say blockchain is they can't live without each other. The two are connected. Okay, but decentralization. Right? Centralization of power creates a lot of problems in our world, creates a lot of death and destruction of centralization. And I heard you make that analogy with the FAA and the single network. I'm not convinced that I think there can be, because we have the ELD, and I agree that for the first time, I've been in this business since 97, starting in 2017, you finally did have some tracking data because every truck had a device in it, right? And so we could learn from that data certain things about hold times, and and we could pull some shippers' pants down because they were delaying trucks too much. Craig Fuller with Sonar and Freight Waves has done a lot of good work there.
Right.
But I'm wondering how far you guys are thinking. What if your network existed in a market where there was no fiat currency? Like, how are you guys thinking about your blockchain and your network creating value, turning out a currency that's based on that activity, that could pay the carrier for that value to value relationship between what the carrier does for the shipper, what the shipper does for the carrier, for the receiver, that maybe we create transportation coins or coins that are, because what I think is the foundational thing here of LaneAxis, from my vantage as the driver and operator, is that it has the blockchain base, like you said, the trust. And now I want to try to do some videos later for our audience to explain why we say blockchain and trust in the same sentence, because that's fundamental. You have to understand why the blockchain creates that trust, and you have to understand technology. So, because Landstar, we have a lot of those things. We have our own apps, we have our own network, we have a lot of things, but doesn't benefit anybody outside our network.
Right.
So,
and so does UPS and Walmart and Amazon, blah blah blah.
TQL and
that's the problem, and that's why I made the distinct difference that we're actually building the network itself. Because if you build proprietary systems, then you're limited to the value of that system. And if you go to Walmart today and say, okay, well, Walmart, as an example, how many contracted carriers do you have underneath? And they would say 300, 500. There's a number, but it's in that range, right? Okay, well, then you just have to ask yourself, well, if that's the number, and I know from a database side, because LaneAxis showed me that there's 1+ million trucking companies. So why is there the disconnect between 1.8 million plus trucking companies and let's just call it 300? And you know that there is a larger number of that, because you can go to any distribution center and you can sit there for 4 or 5 hours and you can go, okay, well, and we've done this. There's 300 in 4-hour period different trucks that come in and out of that in a single day in 4 hours. So there's a lot more companies hauling that freight, right? So there's the disconnect of that part. Now, when you talk about the digitalization, I got to be careful, because what we've done 100% is we are completely in compliance with all the SEC, and they haven't made a crypto, right? Because they haven't made some decisions on how they're actually doing it, and we're cautious of that. We're aware of that, and one thing we 100% will do is always 100% in compliance with the law, right? And so that's why the revenue model and everything else has got nothing to do with crypto and nothing else, because none of our revenue is based off that and nothing else. It just, we have our own network and we're quantifying it on a blockchain, which is legal and valuable. And we're using a utility component that in some countries that crypto is friendly, that we're in conversation with several different countries that are interested in companies over there that are interested in the opportunity of a direct network and what it represents in their country. In those areas, yes, what you described is exactly what's going to happen, because in this element of data in transportation, when basically in a trucking company, 95 cents of a dollar goes out the window in some form of a cost, right? And so you can start to monetize all of these different attributes that you contribute to the network and you can start making money. That's the idea, right? And what do I mean? Polling best fuel prices by your route, that's real time, that gives you direct rebates by the volume, because the network itself, if you have several million carriers, you're the biggest rebate as an individual consumer. And why can't you make 50, 60 cents rebate per gallon? From a network, you would be able to as an owner operator. I'm telling you, companies realize those gains. You don't see it because they don't push it down to you at an individual level. So when you look at that times, location-based data that you can pull, that because this location loads in 4.5 hours, that's affecting your reset, you can charge more, right? You don't have any of that data. So the network being, and the reason that we're putting the blockchain and the digitalization of the asset, which is the data, and quantifying it, is because as the laws change and as more and more companies move to blockchain and as they move to digitalization of currency and different things that they do, right, there's going to be opportunities that you can move it into whichever way the law actually is. And you can't be in violation of law that doesn't exist. So they don't really know certain things quite yet, right? But as it moves, you've already built the foundation behind what is the future of transportation, which is a direct network, and quantifying it on blockchain and quantifying all the data sets. Because I can show you right now all the various different data sets that we're quantifying on the Axis token that's going to be retrievable data points that are valuable. And so the future of transportation is a direct network. It is in the blockchain, and it is digitalizing the data points of a transportation network that produces the movements that is millions and millions of times done every day, right?
Okay, I got a couple of questions.
Yes, sir.
So I think that you won't have any trouble convincing owner-operators to participate. But how are you going to sleep at night putting all these brokers out of business?
Well, how do they sleep at night charging what they charge? I don't know. I guess we take the same pill. It's just mine might be a little bit easier to swallow than theirs because I don't have any. We're providing value to them that's actually doing the work. I can't tell you how many times over there. And look, this isn't about replacing them, right? There's still travel agents that do a great job. They just don't make 50% on booking an airline ticket. Right. They might get $25, but they're still in business. They provide us great service, and somebody doesn't want to mess with it. And but they're not going to get 500 because it's not the world that we live in anymore. And I think it's a little bit tongue in cheek what you said. We're laughing, right? But I understand the point, and the point is that whether LaneAxis does it or somebody else is going to do it, the future of transportation is not going to continue in the next 5 years with $200 billion of managed fees. I think we can all agree upon that statement.
Right. So what do you see their role when this becomes more of the mainstream brokers I'm talking about?
Well, I think major manufacturers from a FedEx and UPS and all the rest of these guys are going to start to realize that, okay, I do have an ability to go direct. And so if you think about it, what's an annual contract, right? A major shipper gets an annual contract. Is that good for him? Well,
depends on the market, because they'll change it in a heartbeat.
Exactly. And if it can change in a heartbeat, it's probably not good for him. And it's not good for a carrier either. And so if you have transparency and you have visibility, you don't need an annual contract because both sides have ability to connect on the fly immediately with blockchain and contracts, tracked in real time, direct payment, and you don't need that. So regardless of what happens, pandemic, spike in weather, a storm, whatever, you can manage your business based on the need and demand of the real-time data of information. That's where it's going. And whether we do it or whether somebody else does it, when you get an annual contract, as a trucking company and or a shipper, that's old school. I mean,
Right.
it just is. And so, when they start to realize that and they say, okay, well, hey, look, that's where data is going to start to push, quite frankly, owner operators to perform well, because you're going to have we all have a credit score, right?
Right.
What is that? Well, that's a risk assessment. Well, what's a risk assessment? Well, it says to the lender, you know what, this guy's got an 800 credit score, so odds are you're going to get your money back if you give him money.
Right.
So they get it. It's pretty easy, and it's pretty good rates, right? If you're 500, you may not get it, and if you do, it's going to cost you a lot more.
Right.
Well, so where does that come from? That comes from historical information that you are responsible for producing.
A network of people who report data.
So what happens is, in real data, in the real life of transportation, when you look down the corridors of time, and 5 years from now, you're going to come to LaneAxis, you're going to query the network and going to say, oh, this guy's on time 98.7% of the time.
That was my next question. Isn't this going to show transparency to everybody? You're going to have shipper performance. You're going to have driver performance. I mean, everybody's going to know your reputation.
And you should. If you're a good carrier, and look, 98, 99% of all guys that are out there in trucking, transportation are good guys. They're hard workers, and there's always an exception to every rule. That's not to knock anybody. It just is. And so in that scenario, guys are going to stand on their own. Look, man, truckers are men. They work for a living. Their hands are not soft, and they actually, and through the years, I've fought these so many things about trucking and truckers and blah, 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 and so many, pigeonholed ideas that people have of these guys, and they're not like that at all, period. These guys work, they're smart, they will learn. And now they're starting to learn technology is actually good for them, because they'll never use a smartphone. Their hands are too big. All that shit's gone away, right? You never hear any of that now, right? Because these guys, they have downtime and they're utilizing it. So now guys are starting to monetize it. They're building channels, they're YouTube channels or TikToks, they're doing various different things. And as it goes, that's where, when you have a network of the true network, which is smaller, independent, and I make that classification because I don't ever want to limit a guy that has 5 or 6 or 10 trucks, that is a worker and a hustler, and he's found a way that he can manage that and still drive. I mean, there's tons of those guys out there, right?
Well, and specialization should be easier too. I mean, I've done blanket wrap in van where I carried blankets and bars. And well, if I'm a shipper and I'm querying the system to say, well, who's the guy that's got the blankets, bars, and straps and the white glove service? He's got a lift gate and he's got pallet jacks. We see people at Landstar that have carved out a niche for themselves with the specialized handling, and they're making piles of money. Well, I saw at another carrier, when the rates would drop down, general freight people would try to come in and undercut that white glove service. And it was a disaster, because
right.
You can't send somebody that hauls monkey freight to come in and do that specialized white glove service. Well, if the shipper, they may be, well, you get what you pay for, but right. But this is such a great deal. Yeah. But now you can see,
they can get by with it every once in a while, right?
Right.
Long term, because they're going to get hit.
And I've got a 7-year relationship with a direct customer. I'm the single most expensive guy that hauls their freight, because I've proven over 7 years that I can get the job done, and nobody can undercut me. They can try, but as long as this guy's still here, if he dies, I'm screwed. But as long as this guy is still here, he knows who's going to get the job done, and I can send any one of my guys in there because they are under me. They're under my identity. So you got more questions?
Well, I was just we're talking about that, the reputation thing. I think that there's going to be, you're kind of generous, I think, with the 98% of drivers. I don't know that I would agree with that, but
well, I haven't done any dispatching and for about
it's less than that, Rick. Okay,
I have a line that I use, that the biggest problem with truck drivers that they think the axis of the universe runs through the top of their precious little head. All right, a system like this.
I kind of miss some of those heated moments with drivers, though. That
yeah.
Where are you at? type of,
Right.
you know.
If you
Why do you want to know, and why should you know? That would be their next question.
Yeah.
And I'd always tell them, I know exactly where you're at.
Well,
Tell me your location. I know exactly what you were doing. Right.
There, having been in this business 25 years, I hear a lot of people long for the good old days. And I'm like, you mean the good old days when I didn't have an iPhone, iPad, cell phone, and I had to stand in the truck stop with one phone to each ear and a cloud of cigarette smoke waiting for somebody to tell me to come back, call back in 2 hours. Hell no. Y'all can take the good old days and shove them.
Yeah.
But
right.
There is one component of that is that you used to be able, no tracking, nobody knew where you were. It was a very trust system. People are putting $100,000 worth of freight. They have no idea if it's ever going to get there. And that's the polishing of the turd. Well, even today, we don't really have a system. We have a CSA system, which is horseshit.
Right.
But we don't really have a service score. Somebody's got to remember, I remember that guy or that trucking company or that name. And it's throwing, toilet paper at a wall to see what'll stick. What this can do is give us that accountability that we desperately need as drivers and truck operators.
Well, you need a Yelp for transportation, right?
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly.
And that's what we're going to build. And that's the good components of the
But a Yelp for transportation backed up with blockchain data so that you can't bullshit somebody.
100%. That's the only way you're going to do any of it, because it's going to be quantifiable, pull location, pull timestamp, and pull, or else you can't make a submission. I mean,
right.
So and all them key elements, and that's why we are doing, the blockchain. And I started the blockchain, 4 years ago, 3.5 years ago. And because it was always, and that's what our patent is. If you read our patent, it's a shipper carrier interaction optimization platform. So this isn't, like I said, it's not new. It was always the vision of building a direct network. And then as things come up and as improvements of technology, just like AI, right? That wasn't a conversation 10 years ago, 5, in transportation. We're building it now. We're building sidechain AI bots that are going to give you capacity availability to alert the network. You're coming out of Chicago and you're 60% full. The AI bot will alert the network of available 40% capacity, 18,000 pounds it can take. The guy can swing by Effingham, pick up that, negotiate on the fly, pick up that load, and pick up $500 worth of revenue on the back of that truck. Yeah. That's an AI bot. That's
everything we've done up to this point. We have to take data and look backwards. We have to take whatever we can, and we say, well, we did this last year. Well, hell, last year was a pandemic. I can't do anything with that data.
Right. That's right. But you have learned historical trends, right, that are always going to happen.
Right.
9/11, 2008 crash, pandemic. I mean, and so, but when those things happen, if you're not making advancements to improvements of the major things that happen, and so what am I talking about? What I'm talking about is network visibility. If you have network visibility, if there is a pause and everything comes to a stop, okay, boom, you can dispatch and move, and you can reinvent yourself while the things turn back around. And if you don't have an ability of being able to connect with the true industry, that's really what we're doing. Right? We're actually building all the massive movements, and I would say we're cleaning house, right? And making transportation simple. It's the movement of product from point A to point B, and it's connecting the two people that doing it, and then we're quantifying the data of all that movement to bring value to the network. Simply put, that's what we're doing.
Rick, prior to being in trucking, I was in photography for about 35 years, professional photographer. So I lived through the digitalization of that industry.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, the Polaroid, and I used to get them coming out, right?
Yeah. So
here it is.
When it came on the horizon, people that were innovative like you are in this situation, their prediction was at that time they would take about 15 to 20 years before it would be fully embraced and ingrained into the industry, to where film basically be, gone. Well, that happened in 5 years instead of 20 years. And then, of course, the iPhone just was the nail in the coffin, for professional photographers.
Right.
Looking forward here with where you are, what is your prediction for when that kind of thing will be prevalent in this industry, as opposed to the way we do things now?
I think you can cut that in half, right? So you said 15, I would say 7.5. And then if we get an iPhone type of thing, which is unforeseen in our particular industry, it could be 3 to 4.
Right.
But the reason why I say that is 7, because people have to be realistic, right? I mean, there's behavioral things, and this business is being done today. Okay, so you don't have to have LaneAxis to continue what you're doing. It's just inefficient. Yeah. But if people really understand and they start to gravitate, and once one major person goes, there's too much efficiency, there's too much cost savings, there's too much value, move to it. And when that happens, and then it affects the stock price of a publicly traded shipper, right?
Right.
And that gets announced, the next quarter you will see like this, because the competitors are going to have to come, and all the rest of them are going to have to come in order to compete. And so, that's why the time frame may to get, reduced. And ultimately, I think there's so much entrenched into this process of these guys, and they have so much control. And I'm talking about brokers and 3PLs, because they're the only ones that have the information, right? And they know what the shipper's paying, and they know what the carrier's getting, and either side of the two entities of the transportation movement, which we described as the core, the shipper and the carrier, are dealing direct. They have that neither side knows. And so pulling down that veil, is going to take time, and that time I would say is 7.5 years before, there is the removal of a professional photographer, right?
Well, you mentioned stock prices. There was a time when Eastman Kodak was a blue chip stock. Every portfolio had Eastman Kodak. Now, to stay in business, they've had to sell proprietary, information. So, and you're right. That's when it really, really gets people's attention, is when stock prices start falling on these great big blue chip companies.
Right, and it's going to be a direct relationship to their transportation, because this is going to, if they cut their transportation, Walmart cuts their transportation costs by $3 billion in a year by moving to a direct network that's actually of a freight. That's profit to them.
Wouldn't it be fair to say that the only reason they still have a private fleet is to have that that instantaneous control of what needs to be where and when? I mean, their
private fleet, in my opinion, and this is only my opinion, but in my humble opinion, the only reason why they have a private fleet is to merely keep the stock shelved in their stores.
Right.
They're not moving freight.
Right.
And they could benefit with 8,000 trucks. They could benefit with network visibility, because there's a lot of backhaul opportunities for them when they get on the back end side of the deliveries, and they had network visibility, and they do some of that. But I know, like Coca-Cola and all the rest of these guys, I mean, let them do the math.
There was a guy back in, let's see, when was Katrina? 2008. There was a guy that wrote a really interesting piece called Walmart to the Rescue. And he went through what happened right after Katrina. And he pointed out that the day before the storm hit, Walmart had a meeting in Bentonville. And they're like, look, all hell's fixing to break loose on the Gulf Coast. Here's what we're going to do. So they had their trucks lined up down the road. And after the storm blew through, Walmart just drives in. They already knew what medications. They already knew they needed water. They already knew they needed food. They already had the distribution network. They already had the stores. And so they handed out authority to their there was a copy of a memo that went out to the local store managers and said, look, you're not going to be able to contact us. You're not going to be able to get our permission or our advice. You're going to have to do whatever you can do. One girl drives a bulldozer through the side of her store to get the medications and hand it out to a National Guard triage unit in her parking lot. Now, if she worked for FEMA and done that, they would have sent her to jail.
Right.
So, because they had the data, they knew what the customers in that area were using. They also knew what were the basic necessities. They loaded the trucks up. And there was one of the parish constables that said, had the federal government behaved the way Walmart did, we wouldn't be in this mess right now. Right. So I see this being able to, because to me, it feels like trying to get the layperson to understand what it's like to find loads is take them in Walmart, blindfold them, and say, all right, go find what you're looking for. Right. Because that's what it's like when you're looking for loads. You're just... Yeah. You're waiting for some little signal to pop up out of nowhere. Oh, there's one. Oh, it's a 120-mile deadhead. Screw it. I'll go get it because it checks all my boxes.
Well, and what you're doing is you have manual processes in addition to all that blindfolded, right?
Yeah.
I mean, because you're querying some origin destination, right? And you're querying some equipment type, but then you're calling or emailing and you're waiting for a person on the other line that ultimately, you're going to get a hold of them, not right. And that's a lot of, I mean, I think we could talk to tomorrow about all the layers of inefficiencies that this, and it's really amazing because the common person, they would have no idea that the way transportation, they would, when I tell somebody, well, UPS has got a bunch of people answering phones that you have to call. If it's an arrival or departure, you have to call and give them the LMA number, the trailer number, and they keep track of it that way. They would go, no way. Right. I mean, and I'm not picking on them. I mean, you can only do what you can do because nobody's figured out how to take the true network of the 1.4 plus million trucking companies that have 5 trucks or less and figure out how to network connect these guys and build it into where there's visibility. And, look, and like we said, 98, 99 might be a little good, but there's, of that, Walmart's not going to deal with 100% of every owner. It doesn't give them the right to go direct because they have to have performance, right? But how do they know who's good and who isn't? Because there's no data, right? I mean, and so what's going to happen is that's why it's going to be a natural progression, but there's going to be a tipping point in LaneAxis's history that go, boom. That's when people figured out, got it, and go, oh, there's just way too much value in that. You got to go over there.
Are you guys foreseeing competitors in your space that will be trying to kind of do what you're doing, and maybe that you would have a shared data network with other providers that are trying to do the same thing? Like,
I think there may be. I mean, if you think about Google, right? If you want to know, hey, go look this up, go Google it. That's what people say, right? They don't say go Bing it. They don't say go Yahoo it. Those are search engines. And how many different search engines are there? I don't really know, but there's more than one. And ultimately they're doing whatever they need, but there's one leader. And I think that we probably, our goal is to be that leader because we have the core elements of all the things that a direct network should represent. Direct connections, direct negotiation, direct payment, and then all the data that is the core part of that movement is on the blockchain and quantifiable. So when you look at a comparable and you get a competitor and say, well, are you doing this? Because this is what LaneAxis is. LaneAxis is agnostic to any type of freight, and they're building the core elements on blockchain of transportation, and it's a direct network, and it's a direct payment, direct negotiation, and real-time tracking, real-time electronic documentation, and quantified on blockchain with data elements that is scoring on all these performance. I mean, I think the natural progression is we could be the Google of transportation, be the leader, because you can come to LaneAxis and get a credit score of your performance, and you're going to want that. Because in order for you to get certain things of certain freight, maybe just in time or maybe things that really matter, right? You might have a credit score. And if you don't have it because you're not part of LaneAxis network, you're going to get in there.
Right.
Right. And so I think for us, we want to be the leader in the industry of the direct network to where everybody at least participates to have the data elements that matter. so that they have opportunity for freight. And, that's where the industry is going to end up going. And, so the other models that are out there that are driven by, percentages of freight movements, that, they're not a competitor to us. Right. And unless they're doing all the other things, and I haven't seen anybody even remotely close to the model of what we're doing, just to be honest.
Right.
I'm not saying they're not out there. I don't spend all my day researching other people. And when people ask me, I'm like, I don't really care what they're doing. It doesn't matter to me. I'm in the gym, I'm working out, we're in training camp every day, and we're pounding in here at the office, and we're doing what we need to be doing, and we're bringing value to this, and we're focused on what we can control, and that's us. And what we're doing. And if anybody else is doing anything, God bless them. It doesn't matter to me. Because even if there's 10 of us, I told you that if we gain, 10% in the next 3 years away from the 900,000 loads that's posted on, that's 90,000 loads a day. That's
right.
That's a great model. That's a great business. There's great revenue for LaneAxis, great value to their LaneAxis shareholders. There's great value that's being, and I can tell you there will be LaneAxis global direct freight networks. I mean, that is going to happen.
So I'm on the website looking right now, and I can see that you can activate and connect. So the network is up and running right now.
It's fully functional. I mean, we got thousands of carriers in the network today. I mean, we have shippers in there every day, and we're actually running a beta test right now on the blockchain components as we speak, and we're making tweaks and different. We added a couple. We're adding 2 guys that are from the system side, some TMSs that are going to be really good to give granular level feedback to help. What our focus in the next 6 months is really about scaling, right? Getting the system fine-tuned to make it easier and, a little bit of elements functioning a little bit more like a load board where they can post a load and it goes out to the network and then broadcast it to where it's easier. There's different things you learn, right? I mean, if you think about a cell phone, it was a bag phone to start. It was 29 cents, a minute.
A minute, right.
And then, well, what's a cell phone today?
Yeah.
Well, the thing's a freaking, rocket ship that's in the thing to the moon, right?
Yeah.
I mean, it's the computing power that it has. And that's been that was 93, 2003, 2013, ain't even been 30 years.
Right.
Look at what it can do. Now, in transportation, you have all this understanding of technology. You have all this. So basically, you're layering the value of people's understanding into a network that exists and adding value. So the learning curve is going to be a lot less. The time frame is going to be a lot less because, you're just deploying this, feature sets that people that understand and know into a network that's antiquated.
So this what's the IPO firm you're using? The crowdfunding.
Oh, the Start Engine?
Start Engine. So tell us a little bit about that. How can people get involved?
Actually, if you just go to startengine.com, there's a LaneAxis page. And you can get shares. I mean, their shares they buy in LaneAxis is the same as mine. With all common shares are all the same. There's no difference in class of shares. And you can have a stake of and all the patents are owned by LaneAxis, the trademarks, the IP is all of the blockchain, all components of development, futures all owned by LaneAxis. So there's no tricks in any of that. So we're a Reg CF. So we had a campaign last year. We raised $1,070,000. That's the most you could raise last year at that particular time. The SEC increased that limit, started March 15th of this year to $5 million. So we launched March 15th of this year. So in 3 months or whatever, going on 4 months, we've raised, I think it's 3.8 something right now, close to 3.9. We have 1.1 million left, and then we'll close it out. And hopefully, quite frankly, we don't have to, raise capital again. We can just keep the shareholders we have and grow the network and grow the revenue. And then we have a digital asset, that we have that is going to have value in the future. And so, but you never know. I mean, but that's where they can find it. There's good page of information out there. And, so if anybody's got any questions, they can hit me up too, so.
And your token, is it going on the exchange?
It's on an exchange. So it's on Probits right now. So it's publicly traded. It's traded on Probits, which is a Korean exchange. We're adding a top 5 exchange next month. And then, we'll just take it, we'll probably add another couple, 3 exchanges, but the real value is growing the network itself,
Right. Gotcha.
Because if you don't grow the network, nothing else matters.
Right.
The data doesn't matter. The token doesn't matter. Nothing else matters because, and that's why we've been patient. We've actually had this blockchain asset for 3 years and just held it because we never were going to do anything with it if we weren't able to. And it's been the chicken and the egg to figure out how to actually build the network itself. So
Sure.
and that what we figured out last year was build the actual network of database attributes. That's why when you come to LaneAxis, you query. You'll see, okay, in Chicago, 60-mile radius Chicago, there's 55,274 owner-operators, right? And ability to message and connect directly to them. So, it's been, this cancer's thick in transportation. There's a lot of layers of inefficiency, and solving this, quite frankly, has been a mass feat. Now, as we move forward, what's going to happen is that once we move past the tipping scale, when you have technology and it starts to produce, you're making up revenue 100x what you didn't have now, right? Because it's scaling, and that scaling just runs. And
so for our listeners that may not know, you can invest in LaneAxis for as little as $300, I want to say. Is that true?
yeah, it's on this campaign page. I think it's that amount. It's in that neighborhood, 291, or I don't, let me just look. Instead of guessing, 298.10.
Okay, so an investment of that or anything above that, depending on the person's, I guess,
risk tolerance. Whatever they're comfortable with in their particular situation, and all that. But yeah.
And if they're a carrier and got an MC number, they can go ahead and get exposure on the network now.
Yeah, they can join the network right now. They can loads are running today, and I challenge. I ask you guys to do it. Loads you're running today, go join. Just put your MC. It's free. Put your MC and the roads you're running today. Add them and track yourself and get so you can start getting used to it, right? And
can you do that if you don't own the MC?
Yeah, you can because you're a driver. Right, and you have a DOT number that you're associated with,
right?
So you can download the app and get a load and create the load and just see the network experience and start to look at shippers and start to invite and add your loads and track your loads and do all this. You can do all this stuff for free, and you're building data and and that helps us because then hey man, you guys should do this and you guys should do that, and that's what helps us, right? Because it's like. I look at this and we got the Model T, the Model T's built, and there's no cars on the road. And, the only way to know if you need shocks is to get the car out there. Right. And the only way that you need, that you need air conditioning is get the car out there in a hot environment and go, you really need air, right? Because you can't stand it when all them things that improve. And then as you're making them improvement, what's going to happen is, boom, you're going to be able to start producing 5,000 of those a day in a manufacturing plant, and then you're adding 10 manufacturing plant, and you're producing 50,000 a day, and now all of a sudden you're driving a Lamborghini, right? Mm-hmm. Well, you never got there until, you drove the Model T because that was on the road first and, all them other things. So the good part with us is all of the infrastructure is built. Right. Transportation movement's built. It's just efficiently and cost savings and effectiveness is what needs to improve. And that's why we need guys like you to get in there and use it, and start making this and be patient. That's why we're not charging people right now. We're not charging them because we want them to use it. So there's, in the industry, smaller independent guys, have to, it's like anything, man. If don't complain you're out of shape if you're never going to the gym.
Right.
Right. I mean, and so don't complain to us if I haven't gotten any, look, man, we're not a load board. You get loads through here because you build direct connections and you have loads wherever you're at, wherever you're going. But it's going to take effort by you because it's your business. It's your opportunity. It's your ability to control your own destiny. If you want to be home on Friday night for your son's game, build direct connections because then you can control your movements and damn it, you'll be home by noon on Friday and bear at the tailgate.
Right.
Because you made your money because you're not sitting there waiting for some guy to call you back on a load that, you got to move. You can't move the truck empty.
You sound so much about, we take people that typically are company drivers and most of them for big fleets, and they think they want to be an owner operator and they think they want to come to Landstar, but they don't realize that Landstar is a completely different animal than what they're used to. And that's what we do here. We have a 1.5-year program where we bring people in and teach them how to navigate the Landstar system, teach them how to become problem solvers and owner operators and business people, because they're truck drivers, but they think that buying a truck is the same thing as driving for somebody else, and they don't realize that. So we get all that, and what you're doing is exactly on a much bigger scale what we do every day with the few guys that
we should integrate you guys into our system. So if there's an owner operator, they just go through your training thing.
Well, there you go.
Oh, I mean, seriously, because I think that when we grow up and we're successful in what we're doing, I can see the network being 3.5, 4 million owner operators.
Right.
Why? Because what's a truck driver? He likes driving. He likes his freedom. He likes to be on the road. And so if he has an ability to go to a network where he can build direct connections, get direct payment, and it tracks all the things he needs to do, all of his back end stuff automatically.
Right. Our biggest challenge is getting deprogramming them from being robots to do critical thinking. That's the biggest thing we do. And then the business side of it, most people don't understand what it takes to stay in business. They don't understand that the pennies count, and so that's our challenge, is taking people that are unsophisticated in business. They're great drivers, but once you become an owner operator, driving is about 10-15% of what you do, so so that's our challenge. And we kind of have the same sort of, you mentioned the salmon going up the stream. We kind of feel the same way. We're a very small, drop in the bucket, but
we're literally called lunatics.
We've been given the nickname lunatics.
Well, that's probably generous of what I've been called. So,
we've been called that too, but publicly. So we've embraced it now. We call ourselves the lunatics, and because we don't do it like everybody else does. We do it without going in debt, and we do this all about being solid, business, having a good business where, you can survive the pandemic, and
making business decisions based on math and risk management, not emotions.
Right. Yeah.
Well, Rick, we appreciate your time, man. I can't believe you gave us all this time. I feel like we've really intruded on your day. We appreciate that.
No, that's what I'm here for, man. I'd love to keep in touch and see if we can't work something out. I love what you guys are doing.
Sure.
This is what makes it. We're in here working, right? And that's why I put my email out there. I put my phone number. My shareholders sometimes get, I can't believe you call. Look, man, you got to put the work in, and it's a grind. And if you're not willing to do that, you're not going to make it.
So full disclosure, I did buy a few thousand shares about a week or two ago. So I didn't want to tell you that up front.
Wait a minute, now you're a shareholder. I got to salute you. Yeah. No, I appreciate you guys. And hey, feel free if you want to do a follow-up or, you got questions or whatever, hit me up. My email is rick@LaneAxis.com. Anybody got questions, you can email me. I'm pretty good on keeping that inbox clean. So it might take me a little bit of time, but know that I'll get it and I will reply. And, we're just kind of in this journey together, right? We want to improve people's lives that are actually doing the work. That's the whole point. That's our mission.
Well, this will hit YouTube probably not this weekend, but next weekend. We got a bunch of orientation we're doing this weekend, so we're going to be busy. But we'll give you a heads up when it's going to go, so you'll know, because you're probably going to get a bunch of calls after that.
That's all right.
We've got a few hundred subscribers, so you'll, and again, we've got a pretty big listening audience, so I wouldn't be surprised if you get a lot of action off of it. So, again, thanks a lot, Chris. You might get anything?
Yeah. Well, I'm just thankful to have you here, because I've been waiting for this. I've been waiting 3 or 4 years for someone to come up and do what you're doing. And as soon as that's my best friend, he sends me this clip from this, podcast, and he was like, "It's the LaneAxis guy." And I'm like, "Oh, holy crap!" And so, we're really thrilled you came on.
Thank
would
you very
love to have you back.
Very humble, man, by the work you guys are doing, and know that we're in the same boat, rowing together, and I'm here to help any way you guys can. I know you guys are doing that for us, and we appreciate it. I don't take it for granted, and I wish you guys all the best too.
All right, thanks a lot, Rick. Appreciate it.
Thank you, sir.
Appreciate it. All right,
we'll be in touch.